So how do we detect alien type 1, 2, and 3 civilizations? So we've been kind of talking about basically type 1 civilization detection.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe with the Dyson sphere, you start to get like a little bit more type 2. But it feels like if you have a type 2 civilization, it won't be just the Dyson sphere.
Right.
It feels like that just for the same reason you mentioned, climate change, but now at the star system level, they're probably expanding, right? So how would you detect a type 2?
How about propulsion plumes? Right? If you're expanding,
Nice.
no, I literally
That's great.
put in a NASA proposal now.
Nice.
Thomas Beatty, who's joined us he's at the University of Wisconsin, has an idea to look for plumes. Right? If you have a solar system wide civilization, right, and you got space truckers going back and forth, right, from Mars to they're doing the Enceladus run. They're accelerating and decelerating the whole way there, right? If you want to get to Mars in a couple weeks, you have your fusion drive on the entire way out there. You flip and burn and have it on, so you're also always have gravity. You have thrust gravity. So would those plumes be detectable? Because now you've got spaceships going all over the place, and the odds that the plume is going to cross your field of view could become pretty high. So yeah, I think that's a good way of looking for. That's one idea. Of looking for, large scale interplanetary, which is kind of like when you're getting to a type 2. Another possibility is looking for the tailings of asteroid mining. This was an idea. It was a group at Harvard Smithsonian that, to be able to look for if you're really chewing up asteroids to build space habitats, there'd be dust particles left around. And would they look different from just, say, the dust, from just regular collisions?
So pollution of all different kinds.
And
trash also?
Okay, so trash is an interesting idea when you come to the actual solar system, right? There's a whole other field of technosignatures, which are things in the solar system. What if somebody came by 1 billion years ago, and left some stuff, right? So the Earth has been showing biosignatures for billions of years. And, a species like us looking at our level, looking at Earth, would have been able to know that Earth had life on it, had a biosphere for billions of years. So maybe somebody sent something by, a 500 million years ago. So this idea of looking, say, at the moon for artifacts that have been there for a long time is something that a number of people are doing. We're just working on a paper where we just calculated, this was super fun. We calculated how long would the lunar lander exist on the moon before micrometeorites just chewed it down, right? How long would you be able to land on the moon and go, oh, look, there's somebody was here and left some debris. So there's this process called gardening, which is just the micrometeorite, constant rain of micrometeorites, and that's where you get the lunar regolith, that fine powder on the moon, is because of this gardening. And it turns out it is literally hundreds of millions to billions of years.
Oh, nice.
That the lunar lander will be visible.
Oh, so we should be able to find artifacts.
Yeah, if there are artifacts and people have proposed doing this with artificial intelligence. We have, the moon has been mapped down to like a couple of meters with various probes, and all that data is sitting there. So why not use machine learning to look through all those things and look for anything that looks not like the lunar surface? And they did a test program where they gave the computer, sort of 50 miles around the Apollo 11 or maybe it was the Apollo 17 site. And it instantly was able to pull out the lander.
I mean, the whole task of looking for anomalies, something that looks not like the lunar surface, you make it sound obvious, but it's not exactly obvious. Like anomalies is really not, detect something that doesn't look right about this room.
Yeah.
It's actually really difficult.
It's really difficult. And it's, what's cool, it's a really information theoretic kind of proposal. You really have to use information theory to say, what's the background? What's, how do I define something that I can say that looks weird? So,
yeah, maybe when you're looking at a spectrograph or something, it's still it's going to look really weird potentially. We're kind of hypothesizing all the things that humans would build,
right?
And how do we detect that,
right?
But there could be really weird stuff.
That's why there's this emphasis now on these agnostic signatures, right? So actually disequilibrium is a nice one. One way to define life is it is a system that is far from equilibrium, right? It's alive, right?
Mhm.
Because as soon as it dies, it goes back to equilibrium. And so you can look at all chemicals in an atmosphere, even if you don't know whether these could be chemicals that you have no idea whether or not they have anything to do with life. But the degree of disequilibrium, the degree to which they show that atmosphere has not, the chemicals have not all kind of like just gone down to they've all reacted away to an equilibrium state. You can actually tell that in very general ways using what's called the Gibbs free energy. And that's kind of a signature. Like if you see an atmosphere that is wildly out of equilibrium, that indicates that there's something happening on that planet, biosphere or technosphere, that is pumping gases, into the atmosphere that is keeping the whole system from relaxing.